Today's topic is sacrifice. I was speaking with my friends in Northern California, and the topic came up. Jamie, what sacrifices must we make in order to improve as leaders? And so I think it's a great question, really had me thinking, and I think there's three areas when it comes to sacrifice. And my first thought, and it might not be a popular thought, sacrificing self. Right? My friend and pastor, Steve Wilburn, up in Los Angeles, he'd say the unholy trinity of me, myself, and I. And he'd make this argument to say, listen, if you think of all the pain in your life, you think of all the emotional, the mental pain you've experienced, he said there's a good chance that it was rooted in self-interest, self-desire, self-passions. And I think when people that we're leading see that we're less interested in ourselves and more interested in the greater good, the team, the individual players on the team, you develop buy-in. I think when people see that all you care about is me, right? The win mentality. Win mentality says, I don't care whether you win or not, that's up to you. As long as I win, that's what's important. I don't think you're really going to get that team camaraderie with somebody who's thinking win. You want to be around people that think win-win. So sacrificing self is an important element here that I think we can all work on. Very difficult to do, but I think we can work on it. As a kid, I was always intrigued with the New York Yankees because they seemed to be one of the only teams that didn't have the individual players' names on the backs of the jerseys. And as I was asking questions, people said, well, yeah, the Yankees, what's more important is the logo on the front, the name on the front, the Yankees. The name on the back is less important. It's all about the greater good. It's all about the team. So I think that's a great example of an organization that is less interested in self. We're going to sacrifice self. We're going to go for the team. And when you think of World Series champions, just Google, which teams have won the most World Series? The Yankees are head and shoulders above everybody else. They've got 27. Second most are the Cardinals with 11. So there's a great example of what sacrificing self looks like. My last thought on sacrificing self. I have the privilege of coaching some young men and women in flag football. And so I gave them a great leadership lesson on really putting yourself second, sacrificing yourself. I said, listen, when the team wins, right, when we're on top, you give credit to everybody else. You take no credit. You might have been the MVP, but you're giving the credit to everybody else, right? You're not gloating. You're not taking any of the credit. Now, when the team loses, and this can be hard to digest, you take all the blame. You're the leader of the team. You take all the blame. And so some kids were nodding like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Others are like, I don't like what you're saying, but I'm looking for the leaders to rise here. I'm looking for, again, the question was, what do we need to sacrifice to improve as leaders? Listen, if you really want to be a leader, it's about sacrificing self, giving credit to everybody else when things go right, and you taking all the blame when things go wrong. My second thought when it comes to sacrifice, right? We want to improve as leaders. What do we need to sacrifice? It's time. And for me, this was the hardest pill to swallow, right? I joined the business. The hardest pill to swallow is, man, I am putting in so much effort. It felt like 70, 80, 90 hours. Not sure if that was reality or not, but I'm working all the time is what it felt like. I'm either in the office, in the field, outside of work, hanging out with people, learning, growing. There was a ton of time. And the hardest pill to swallow was it seemed like my friends were making twice as much money, working half as hard as I was. Like, there's something wrong with this equation. And the more successful people I met them at their doors, knocked on their door. I'm like, man, what do you do for work? It seemed pretty clear to me that to become successful, you have to be willing to be overworked and underpaid. It's really the formula for every successful person, whether it's a rock star. Think of, the Beatles. They were, from my understanding, they were working 14 hours a day in Germany, in local bars and stuff like that, because they couldn't even get gigs in England. They learned to get really good. They were overworked and underpaid. Think of athletes, right? How much are athletes making in high school? Think of the sacrifice of time and, what time you hit in the gym, to become a college athlete, then a pro. you were totally overworked and underpaid. And same goes for a business person. So I think when you understand that, I'm on the right track here. Like I remember when I started having some really slow field days, but I felt really good about myself because I'm like, I'm on the right track. Was I overworked and underpaid today? Yes. I guess I'm in the same boat as Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, all the greats. They all had to suck it up and deal with that at the beginnings of their career. And eventually the tides turn where you can get paid today for work that you did yesterday. I mean, isn't that the formula we all want? Hey, I want to get paid today for things that I did yesterday. Well, you got to be willing to be overworked and underpaid in the beginning. And I'll just leave this quote for you on that particular thought on time. When you go the extra mile, there's no traffic, right? There's lots of traffic on the mile that everybody's got to do. It's all clogged up. I ran a marathon, and I'm telling you, the first mile, it's like pylons. You got to kind of move around pylons, and then it thins out quite a bit as people scatter. Some people slow down. It's like, okay, now I can run my race. The extra mile, there's less traffic. Are you going the extra mile? Are you putting in more effort than you're getting paid for, recognized for today? That is the formula for being a successful leader, sacrificing time. And my final thoughts on the topic of sacrifice, straight out of the book, The Millionaire Next Door. Not so long ago, I ran a video on this book. I think it's an excellent book. The question of, hey, what are the common denominators, the commonalities of the self-made millionaires in the United States? People that started from scratch and built a net worth of 7 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures. Like, what do they have in common? What do they do? How do they think? And one of the common denominators is the self-made millionaires allocate their time, energy, and money in ways conducive for building wealth. Now think about it, your time, energy, and money. Let's just pick on money for a second. Well, your money, I mean, there's other things you want to do with the money. I want a new pair of jeans. I want to buy a new car. I want to go out more. I want to go to a fancier restaurant. I get that, but there's a sacrifice involved. You've got to do something conducive in building wealth. Like, oh man, Jamie, I got to invest. I got to put the money in the market. Well, that's what self-made millionaires do. There's a sacrifice involved. And the old quote from John Maxwell, you got to give up to go up. I love that. I think that's like a leader's motto that we should all embrace. I got to give something up. I've got to be willing to sacrifice with a great spirit about it. Like, be excited about the sacrifice because you know you're on the right path. You know you're going in the right direction. You're serving other people. This is what leaders need to do.